our pinch pot, we want to start with a chunk of clay that's going to be about the size of like a little smaller than a tennis ball. I'm thinking like those cutie oranges, but some of those get pretty small, right? But like a cutie orange, somewhere between a cutie orange and a tennis ball. My hands are pretty small, so I can say that it should fit in the palm of my hand, right? I can fit it in the palm of my hand. I have enough for both my pinch pot and my lid. So I'm gonna pound it into what I think is a pretty even circle. Then I'm gonna need a lid. So about how much I think I'm gonna want to be my lid, I'm gonna cut that off the top, set it aside. That's the clay for my lid. I would cover this in plastic until I'm ready for it. Now I'm gonna move this back into a ball. I can add more clay to my lid if I end up needing more in the end. The biggest thing is I don't want you guys running out of clay for your other two projects, right? So you don't wanna go too big. So once I feel like I have a ball, I'm just gonna feel for any big indents or any big protrusions and kind of push them in or out. Now if there's a big indent that I can't push out, I don't feel any, but I'll make one. Okay, oh, I have a big indent that I can't push out. That would be a great spot for my thumb, right? So I'm gonna try to make sure I have the clay formed around that. All right, so I found my thumb spot. And if you don't have one, you can pick any spot that seems centered, right? I'm going to use this hand kind of like a wheel and turn it. And then whichever handed you are, I'm right-handed, so I'm using my right thumb. I'm going to stick that into the clay and I'm gonna slowly twist, kind of like you're screwing it into the clay. And I can feel myself getting off center, so I'm just gonna pull it out. And now once I feel like I'm getting close to the bottom, I'm gonna wanna test how deep it is. Very carefully with the needle tool, you're gonna slowly put the needle in until you feel it against your thumb. All right, so I feel it against my thumb right there. That's how thick it is at the bottom. So I can get it about a 1/2 inch thick, so I can go a little thinner than that. So I'm gonna do maybe another twist. All right, so, and I could test it again if I felt like I needed to. We're going for about a 1/4 inch thick pot, but it starts out a little thicker at the bottom because we need to push that clay out. So now I'm rotating and pushing towards the bottom of my pot around the edges. And then once I feel like I have a smooth push all the way around, I'm gonna go up more towards the middle. And then once I have a smooth rotation, I'm gonna go more towards the top. And I'm just trying to use even pressure because my goal is that my walls are gonna be an even thickness all the way around. So I'm starting to get there, right? Then when I can fit 2 thumbs in, I'm gonna do the same thing, but now, do you see how I use my thumbs kind of like a rotation center, right? I'm pushing out while I'm rotating. Now, I'm starting to crack here. Do you guys see that? I can press down and some of that clay into my pot. I don't want the top of my pot to get really skinny or really thin. We're going for even thickness all the way around, meaning we don't want our top to be thinner than the bottom or the sides. All right, so we're gonna pretend like I'm happy with my pot, right? So I have a pinch pot here. Now I get to decide the shape I want it. If I want it rounded, I can keep rounding it. I'm gonna make mine have a flat bottom. And then that way it sits even, and then I want to just smooth out my sides. So I'm using the plastic because I don't want to dry out my pot. And I'm past the point of wedging where it's gonna stick to the table, right? Do you see how I use that to get smooth? And I can use my thumb if I start to get cracks here. I have some things going on that I don't want, but do you see how I push the clay around? I'm in control. The biggest thing is you control the clay. Don't let the clay control you. If it's uneven and you feel like you can't control the clay, roll it back into a ball and start it over. Are you tracking there? All right, so we're gonna pretend like I'm happy with my pot. My top lip looks the way that I want it to look. I'm done with my embellishments, which I showed you, those are stamping, right? Now you're ready for the lid. So the lid of your pot can be flat, it can be domed. So if I make a flat lid, I could roll it out with a rolling pin if it were a slab construction, but this is I'm moving it because I don't want it to stick to the table. This is a pinch construction, so how am I making everything? With my what? With my fingers, right? So I can make this a flat lid. I can cut this if I can't get the right shape. I could make it a domed lid. So when I'm doming it, I'm using the same concept as I did when I made the pot. And I could dome it on there. Something like that. But however you make your lid, once you have it made, you need to create a lip to hold it in place once it's fired. Right now it's going to stick because they're both wet. They're tacky, they're sticky, they're going to stick together. But they're not going to once they're fired. So I'm going to take a little chunk of clay. I'm going to roll myself a coil. And I'm going to make sure that coil, this might be a little too small. Might have to add some clay. We'll see. That coil fits around the inside. Now you want it to be smaller than your pot. So it'll sit inside your pot. That's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
You don't want it just touching the edges. You don't want it just the right size. You want it slightly smaller. And then I'm going to determine where that lip is going to be on this. I'm just kind of touching it into place. It'll stick temporarily to make sure that it's going to function as a lip. Yeah, that'll function as a lip. So now that I know it's going to function as a lip, I need to attach them together. And the way to attach clay is to score, slip, and knit.
What?
So scoring means to scratch the surface. So I just like made a little circle there so I know where to scratch the surface of my clay. So I'm scratching the surface of the lid, and then I'm going to scratch the surface of the coil too. I'm roughing up that surface so that when I add the slip is kind of like glue for clay. It's going to combine the two sections of clay together. You can use a fork. This needle tool is really tedious and time consuming, but my coil is so tiny and I didn't want to squish the coil with it. But when I'm scoring big things together, I like to use forks. Now this probably is stretched a little bit already, so before I attach it, I just want to make sure it's going to fit inside, and it still does. All right, so slip is clay suspended in water. So what I've done is I've taken a little chunk of my clay and I've worked it into some water. You don't want to use pure water with this clay. Some clays you can, and it depends on the moisture level of the clay too. Oop. But I'm going to take this slip, I'm going to get it on my fingers, or a popsicle stick or a tool as long as you clean them. And I'm going to put it over where I scored on one of my two pieces. It doesn't matter which of the two pieces. And then I'm going to take my piece that doesn't have the slip on it, and I'm going to place them together. So I've scored and I've slipped, step 1 and step 2. Now I'm going to knit. So knitting is just making sure that there's no air that gets between the two pieces. So I'm connecting the two pieces. I can either pull clay down from one into another or up from one into another. It doesn't really matter which one you use to knit. But do you guys see it? Can you see that too? Can you see what I did there? Do you guys see how there's no crack?
No crack.
Right? Do you guys see what I did there? Tristan, do you see that? Did you guys get it? Yeah. And you're going to do that on both the inside and the outside. So anytime you want to attach two pieces of clay together, score slip, and knit, and they should connect. That'll be a connection strong enough that it shouldn't come apart in the kiln. So if I wanted to create a handle on the top of my pot, I would have to score, slip, and knit it on, right? If I wanted to create a handle on the side of my pot, I would have to score, slip, and knit it on. Anytime I'm going to attach one piece of clay to another, the secret is score, slip, and knit. They need to actually attach and become one piece of clay. Otherwise, in the kiln, air's going to get between the two and pop them apart. So you'll have just pieces there that used to be attached when it was wet, but aren't attached when it's fired. Any questions?
No.
You can turn that off.